Today we're taking a look at the RX bundle from INPHONIK. This is the RX bundle. It consists of the RX 950 ADDA converter emulation and the RX 1200 12-bit sampler. Let's take a look at the controls. The RX 950 controls are simple and few, but very effective. So we have the input gain, the audio bandwidth, the filter, and the output level. And we also have the option to turn the signal into mono. The input gain is emulating the soft saturation circuit that was inherent in the original S950 sampler, and gives a nice, pleasing saturation to your signal. The audio bandwidth here, this is adjusting the, so to speak, sample rate. So turning this all the way up or all the way to the right will get you around 48 kilohertz. And then everything to the left goes all the way down, and we'll demonstrate that. The filter is a Butterworth filter. It's a simple low-pass filter. There's no high-pass filter. There's no resonance control here. And the output level is simply there to compensate for the increase in gain. In the options here, you have the ability to change the size of the plug-in, 4 different options, and then how much brilliance in combination with the audio bandwidth knob. And then we have a meter here next to the title of the plugin. The RX 1200 is, of course, an instrument. On the face, we have the options, and here you do have a number of options that you want to take into consideration. The polyphony for each one of the pads, the zoom factor, 3 options, the keyboard layout here, product info, manual, content folder, accessibility, and then shortcut keys, and the ability to select a pad by a key when your sequencer is stopped. In the sample section, we have edit, we have clear, we have channels, 2 simple filters, and a dynamic filter. We have the speed, which is the claim of fame for the original SP1200 workflow. You can fine tune your pitch. You can adjust the gain, and this gain does offer saturation when pushed into, and the ability to select up to 8 outputs. The disk section allows you to load and or save presets, and a master mix volume. The middle section is how you control the tuning, the decay, and the mix or the volume and pan for each one of the pads. And these change based off of the different banks that you have here. Mind you, you can select through by clicking the button next to this, or you can directly select which section or bank you so choose. And of course, the pads are where the samples are held. To the right of that, you have velocity response. This is a global option, not per pad. If we click on the edit button, you get the sample edit screen, which allows you to browse for samples, as well as some basic editing down here at the bottom. Each color you see here represents one of the pads and one of the available banks, and you can also select all to show all of the pads at once. In the menu here, we have normalize, truncate, reverse. You can revert the sample back to its original selection state, and you can clear the pad. You also have the option to color each pad, one of the 8 colors available here. The info section here, it shows you which pad you have selected, the name of that sample, the start and end time can be controlled from here to get a much granular movement. The fade in and out can be done here as well. Again, much more granular movement. The loop mode, in this case, this is one shot. It goes forward, then stops. The normal loop mode, it goes forward and then restarts, and then forward and reverse. The loops start also when you have one of these two selected. Then where the loop actually begins, as it shows you on the screen there, is where it will happen. Right along with the start in, fade out option, you can adjust those on screen here as well. Up top here we have the preview section. So that plays the sample selected. This is the volume for the preview section, and whether or not these samples will autoplay when selected. Of course, our browser to the left here, which brings up the samples that you can select, and you can save your favorites by going to wherever you have your library saved at. Mine is here, typically under here. And when you select a folder, you get this little option that puts that folder in your favorites collection. This collection is the libraries that come with the plugin, and these are samples themselves, all done in a nice categorized manner. Places, of course, is all of the places that is on your computer. The plugin does come with kits that uses the samples that we just previewed. If you click load, it'll take you to the preset load screen. You have in here the most recent added library, which is ambient, the original factory collection. You have a collection of templates, including the ability to clear the entire plugin and put it at its default state. And any kits that you create and save by utilizing the save option, that is done here. And that, folks, is the controls. Okay, so let's pull up a preset from the factory library here. All right, so we have the Smooth Vibes library pulled up from the preset screen here, and let's go through some of the functions that the plugin offers. So for the kick drum, we'll talk about the filter real quick. This is low pass 1, very light, low pass 2. However, the dynamic filter does the most damage. So we can tune that here. Double click to reset. And if you want to use the classic workflow of the SP1200, where you as a samplist would sample a record at 45 RPMs, this is indicative of it playing at a higher pitch that you would then lower to around -6 to get it back to its original pitch. And this was done because the original device was limited in its sample memory. So this allowed you to sample a much quicker sound, slow it back down to its original speed, and therefore save sampling memory. But as a consequence of this, there's a crunchiness that comes with the sound when this is done. As demonstrated on this pad, when we turn off the filter, this is the original sample. So it has a much more gritty, lo-fi texture to it. Demonstrating the decay section, if I select the kick again and bring this all the way to its lowest position, of course you get a much shorter kick. The snare, and then of course the mix is simply volume and pan. The velocity response is global as stated. can go full on. Now, to demonstrate the soft saturation built into the gain function, we'll use the kick. And I'll turn the kick down in the mix. Listen closely. Use that soft saturation to your advantage. Crunchy. Something to keep in mind with the out selection, you have again a total of 8. That is the limit on the plugin. However, you'll notice we have a total of 32 pads. Those 8 outputs are shared between the 32 pads. And as mentioned, each one of these channels or pads has a polyphony adjuster. This pad 6 will shorten up its sound, and the kick are on 2 separate outputs. However, if they were both on the same output with the polyphony set at 1, I'm hitting both pads. As you can see, they're both depressed, but only one is playing. Now, if I extend this, you'll notice that the kick now cuts off that pad. So this operates as a choke group as well. Demonstrating the editing menu here, this is normalize. You can revert your sample back to what it was. Truncate the sample. That takes anything outside of this selected area and removes it. Revert sample again, back where you started. My suggestion, use this to truly dial in a shortness or a smaller decay for your sample, more than what you would get on the decay page, and or for any soft attack. Demonstrating the dynamic filter, this has the effect of having an envelope over the filter, so it starts open and immediately closes. And so that's a look at some of the inner workings of what you can do with the sampler. Let's take a listen at how we used it. All right, so for our demonstration, we have 2 instances of RX 1200. One has drums and samples in it. The other one we used for voice samples. We also have some additional instruments here for other sounds that are not a part of the plugin. Taking a look at the mixer screen, I have an instance of RX 950 on the stereo output. This is providing soft saturation and a coloring of the sound based off of the default position for the audio bandwidth control. This is what the filter sounds like. Let's bypass. Now let's dabble. You'll notice the soft saturation kicking in. What about the audio bandwidth? Notice the enhancement of the highs once I engage. Mono. And we're going to turn all of the tracks on. There is no demo available for either of these plugins. However, the bundle together is currently available for $39. It's a no-brainer. You get yourself a full-fledged sampler with sampling, editing capabilities, and a nice gritty workflow, as well as a AD/DA converter that adds a nice texture to your production. If you are interested in getting a copy of the RX bundle from INPHONIK, check the link in the description. Outside of that,